Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fallout. This episode is all about the must-grabs for Week 7 of the NFL fantasy football season. All right, everybody, so welcome to the Fantasy Football Fallout, the Waiver Wire edition. I'm trying to get these out earlier in the week. As is the case, if anybody's seen my videos before, we're going to go over some options for this week if you have the bye week blues or some injuries that you need to cover. We also have long-term plays if you need to fortify your roster for the long haul. We are going to start with quarterbacks, and so as you can see there, Gardner Minshew, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Daniel Jones are my top three for the quarterbacks. Now, Gardner Minshew only owned in 55% of the leagues. Anybody who plays the Bengals this season, any quarterback, any running back, any wide receiver that plays that Bengals defense this season, I am a fan of. Gardner Minshew, if you need a plug and play this week, he is my guy. Jimmy Garoppolo, the same reasoning applies. If you're playing Washington, you're going to score a lot of points. Jimmy Garoppolo will put up numbers against this Washington team. He's only owned in 35.6% of the leagues. Go ahead and get him if you need to. Lastly, Daniel Jones. Yeah, look, I know on Thursday night he didn't have the greatest game against the Patriots. Who has had a great game against the Patriots this season? Not a lot of people, right? So Daniel Jones playing against Arizona. Arizona will give up yards. Who's going to win, the Giants or the Cardinals? I don't really know at this point. I'll look into that later in the week. But I do think both quarterbacks, both Kyler Murray and Daniel Jones, will score well in this game. Daniel Jones will bounce back. He'll get some yards on the ground. He'll get some yards through the air. Evan Ingram, will he be back? I'm not sure yet. Is Sterling Shepard going to catch? I don't know. But, Golden Tate will be enough. Rhett Ellison will be a great waiver wire pickup. Spoiler alert, we'll talk about him in a little bit. Long-term plays for the quarterbacks. Kirk freaking Cousins killed me this week in gambling, but that's okay. Kirk finally connected with Stephon Diggs. Great for both of them. Not so well for my wallet, but so it goes, the life of a gambler. Kirk Cousins, 26.4% of the league owns him. Look, Kirk Cousins, not the greatest quarterback in the world, but if he's not on national TV, if Minnesota does not need a game for their playoff or their season to move forward, he can be a good player. He's not the best under pressure, but look, he has Adam Thielen, he has Stephon Diggs, he has Dalvin Cook out of the backfield as well. He's got weapons around him. He should be okay. Also, we have Sam Darnold owned in 7.9% of the leagues. Sam, as we see, he makes that Jets a different team. You have Robbie Anderson, you have Jamison Crowder, you have Le'Veon Bell to throw to. Do I like him every week? Do I like him as a long-term play, especially if you're in a dynasty league and he's available? Sure, why the heck not? Lastly, we have Jacoby Brissett, 45.5% rostered throughout the fantasy football landscape. I've been saying him, Jacoby Brissett, he is a guy that has a lot of weapons in fantasy football. He got when everybody's healthy, he has T.Y. Hilton, he has Eric Ebron, he has Marlon Mack, he has Paris Campbell should be back. He's got a lot of options. You got the backup tight end, Jack Doyle, as well, or the secondary tight end if you prefer. He will be able to throw the ball. He has a great offensive line. He has a very smart football coach. I like Brissett. He is my favorite long-term play on this list. If you need a quarterback, if you're suffering injuries, whatever the case may be, pick up Jacoby Brissett. You will be happy. Now let's move it on to running back. As you can see, we have Brandon Bolden, New York Jets, is the opponent this week. He is owned in 0.6% of the leagues. Why is that? Well, you never know what the hell the Patriots are going to do with the running back situation, do you? But I do know that the Patriots have used Bolden a couple weeks in a row. James White has not performed particularly well out of that backfield. Sony Michel is the only one getting consistent reps. You do want to keep an eye out for Rex Burkhead as well when he is healthy. He is a factor in the passing game. Next on my list is Devin Singletary. I like Singletary. He is playing Miami this week. Is he going to be back from injury? I suspect he will. He's been questionable for a couple of weeks now. Look at his numbers. He doesn't have a ton of carries. He doesn't have a ton of catches. I believe he's only played in 2 games this season, but when he has the ball in his hands, he can score from any point in the field. He has that breakaway ability. I like him on film. I like him when he's healthy. Let's hope he is this week. Lastly, I have Darrell Henderson for a weekly plug and play. I don't love the Rams running back situation. I don't think anybody does at this point. But I do think he is the better of the running backs in that backfield when Todd Gurley is hurt. Todd Gurley has an injury that he's getting through. And yes, we've heard all the press. I'm not reacting to the press. I'm reacting to the present situation. Todd Gurley was inactive last week. Will he be inactive this week? We will see. But Darrell Henderson is somebody you want to pay attention to. They are playing the Atlanta Falcons out of the backfield, catching passes, running the ball. He'll be a factor in both areas if Gurley still remains out. I do think he is better than Malcolm Brown as well. He's only going to be more integrated into this offense as the season goes along as well. So Atlanta offers nice single 1 week play capability at the running back position. Next on my list in terms of long-term plays is Mark Walton. You have him out of Miami. Nobody else in Miami is doing anything. Do I like the Miami Dolphins offense? Hell no, I do not. I don't think anybody would. I don't even think Dolphins fans I don't even think Dolphins coaches or Dolphins players like the offense. But Mark Walton, maybe he's the spark that can get them going. Owned in only 0.3% of the leagues. Look, let's be real about this. If you're picking up Walton, you're desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Walton is a guy. Maybe you want to look at Devin Singletary instead. Chase Edmonds is another guy, and I like him for dynasty leagues because, look, David Johnson, he has a big contract. This is an offense that isn't really revolving around the running back the way Bruce Arians revolved the offense around David Johnson back in Bruce Arians' tenure a couple years ago. So now I'm looking at the situation. I'm thinking, if I'm the Cardinals, if I'm the GM, I'm paying all this money to David Johnson. Do I really want that much money tied up into the running back? My answer is no. As talented as David Johnson is in this particular offensive scheme, I think you can replace him with a guy like Chase Edmonds, and you won't be too screwed. Maybe they can trade him. I don't know what the guaranteed money is left on the deal, the salary cap ramifications. That's for a podcast in the offseason, which we will do. But David Johnson, it would not shock me if he's off the Cardinals at some point in the next couple of years. So if you're in a dynasty league, Chase Edmonds, coming catching the balls out of the backfield from Kyler Murray, you could do worse. Do I like him for the rest of the season if you're a fantasy football owner? Frankly, I'd probably go with somebody like an Alexander Madison if I'm looking for a handcuff instead. But again, I just wanted to make that point, especially if you're in a dynasty league, he might be somebody that could be a keeper long term. Now, at wide receiver, single week play, we have some caveats here. I like Philip Dorsett or Jacoby Myers playing the New York Jets this week on Monday Night Football. Respectively, Philip Dorsett is owned in 27.3% of leagues. Jacoby Myers owned in only 0.2% of leagues. If Philip Dorsett is out, I love Jacoby Myers. If Philip Dorsett comes back, I love Philip Dorsett this week, analytically speaking, to score a lot of points versus the New York Jets. But let's keep an eye out for that injury report in the middle of the week. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. He's going to be questionable, right? Let's move it on to Golden Tate against Arizona. Analytically speaking, I think Golden Tate has a nice game. There are weapons that are going to be coming back from the Giants. They certainly aren't full speed. I know Saquon Barkley, for example, will probably be questionable again. I anticipate him not playing this week. But again, let's keep an eye out as we get into the midweek and the later week to see how those injuries shake out. But Golden Tate, regardless, I like him. 13.8% rostered. You can pick him up. He will get you consistent points. I like him not only for this week, but for the full season as well. I have two more receivers on this list. Danny Amendola. Why, right? Why? Well, they're playing a tough Minnesota defense. I think that Detroit is going to have tough sledding getting Kenny Golladay catches in this offense. I think in the passing game, you're probably looking at T.J. Hawkinson and Danny Amendola to move the ball through the passing game. I think Amendola will get catches and yards. If you're in a PPR league, Danny Amendola out of the slot, I think, will be okay for you. And then Chicago, similar reasoning here. I think New Orleans is going to do a really solid job against guys like Allen Robinson. I think they'll shut down the run very well. So how are the Bears going to move the ball? They're going to have to hit Trey Burton. They're going to have to hit Anthony Miller. They're going to have to hit Taylor Gabriel. I think Gabriel, assuming he is healthy, will be the candidate to get some catches there. Now, long-term for wide receivers, I like what Sam Darnold brought to the New York Jets. For that reason, I would invest in New York Jets wide receivers. I think they'll get catches and yards. If you play in a standard league, that is to say no PPR bonus, no 1-point PPR, 0.5, whatever it is. If you're not in a PPR league, I like Robbie Anderson more. He's owned in 56.9% of leagues. If you are in a PPR league, I like Jamison Crowder more. He might not find the end zone. He might not get you the explosion that Robbie Anderson will get, but he'll get you consistent targets and consistent yards. And in a PPR league, if you're playing somebody off of waivers, if you're desperate for depth, that's what I favor. I favor consistency in my lower flex lineups if I have to, unless I'm playing like the league's best player and I need to go for a boom or bust. Then I'll look elsewhere throughout the waiver wire in a given week. Lastly, on my list here for wide receivers, Marquise Goodwin for the San Francisco 49ers. I was high on Jalen Hurd coming into the season. He's IR'd now. We're looking at Deebo Samuel, Dante Pettis. You have Bourne, and you have Marquise Goodwin. I like Marquise Goodwin for his quickness. I think he will continue to score reasonably well for San Francisco. This is still a running team, but I do believe that Mr. Goodwin will get you some opportunities. Moving on to tight end, we have Rhett Ellison. You notice the asterisk there. I only like Rhett Ellison this week, obviously, if Evan Ingram does not go. Analytically speaking, I like the opponent. I like Arizona. They are going to give up yardage. They are going to give up red zone opportunities to the tight end. I think Rhett Ellison will score well, and coming off the bench at 3.9% owned in your league or throughout the fantasy football landscape, I think you could do worse than Rhett Ellison, although I think you can do better as well. Hunter Henry is only owned in 54% of leagues, which I was surprised by. Henry, 2 touchdowns last week against Pittsburgh. He is somebody that can get this offense going for the Chargers. I think Phillip Rivers will throw to him quite often. And then he also has some coverage help because people are going to be rolling coverages over to Keenan Allen, and also looking at the big receiver Mike Williams over there in Los Angeles as well. So Hunter Henry will get looks. I do see him as a long-term play as well. And then Jason Witten against Philadelphia this week, only owned in 52% of the leagues. I don't love him. I love Hunter Henry this week. I love Rhett Ellison if Ingram doesn't play. I don't love Witten, but he is the next best of the rest. Now, looking at long-term tight end plays, I like Everett from the Rams, 46% owned. That's a nice one. Luke Wilson, look, Will Dissly, injury, that's troublesome. Russell Wilson likes to throw to his tight ends. Luke Wilson will have some opportunities, only owned in 0.2% of leagues. And then, of course, Hunter Henry before, as I had said. And then lastly, we have defense and special teams. This is all about matchups, I think, this week. The 49ers, I've been talking them up for a while. Their pass rush is strong. They can force turnovers, and they're playing the Redskins this week. That is the trifecta. I will take that all day. 58.5% owned. They are probably going to be available in your league. If not, well, you have the New Orleans Saints. They have a favorable matchup as well, playing Chicago, and the Chicago offense really hasn't gotten off the ground this season. New Orleans is strong against the run. That's what Chicago wants to establish. So it's really going to be whether or not they can get Allen Robinson going. Well, you have Lattimore matched up on Allen Robinson. I like this matchup for the Saints defense this week. I will take them. And then, of course, the Jaguars. Yeah, I know they're owned in 66% of the leagues. Odds are they are not available in your league, but shoot, man, if anybody who's playing Cincinnati this year or Washington, if there's a chance you can grab them, go grab them. If you're a defense streamer, put in a waiver claim for them. I think any one of these 3 defenses will score quite well for you. Odds are that one of these 3 defenses will be available in your league. So there you go. And I don't do full season defenses. At this point, we're talking about streamers. All the really good ones like the Patriots and basically everybody else. Chicago, those guys are going to all be gone. Minnesota, they're going to be gone. So we're into the streaming part of the season at this point. And you're looking for matchups and teams that can generate turnovers and sacks. If you do want a long-term play, I do like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're available in most leagues right now. Again, they get to the quarterback and they force turnovers. And I like the division that they play in as well. So there you go. There's another week of the waiver wire. This does not account for Monday Night Football games. We're getting this published before the Green Bay versus Detroit game. If there are any relevant notes, maybe any injuries to track, I will post something in the comments. So please take a look in the comments as well. Also, please subscribe, like, comment in our video. Who's your favorite waiver wire player of the week? Please let me know. I'd be curious to see your thoughts as well, and let's get a consensus. Everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week, and hopefully throughout the week this week as we get you primed for Week 7 fantasy football.